take your seat again. If you need water during the meeting, there you will find water over here. There's a tap here. And as you have heard today, it's very important to have the right documentation. And I can see that we are more people in this room than I have got signatures. So there must be a few of you who have not made your signature. So please, pardon? You haven't seen. Find your name and give a signature. Anybody else who have not signed? One more? Yes, thank you. Otherwise, I cannot get back to Denmark. I will be stopped at the border. Ikke? Please, Paola.
I hope the sandwich and coffee was fine. So, after we have heard the information from the Swedish customs, I should try to just view for you how we work when we gets input from the customs. And this is a short presentation, but as Yvonne said, that within 3 days we have to reply to the customs, and we have to take action if there are things that we suspect and have written suspect. And for example, we had a couple of cases as shown earlier, and we have cases going on also. And the last example is a delivery of more than 9,000 products and it was 23 different sorts of toys and 2 other sorts of products. And there was no problem to find mistakes in all of these products. Everything from marking to loose suction cups, for example. So everything was stopped, and we replied with a detailed reply to the customs and saying we suspect this and this and this for each product. And then we continue our process with sending information to the importer of this non-conformity that we suspect, and ask them to give us information about this. And this is part of our actions that we can take, that we have to take action where we think it's a serious risk, and we shall also take measures to prohibit that product from being placed on the market. And the customs shall at that point mark the product or the documentations with a special text like this: dangerous products, release for free circulation, not authorized. And that's according to the regulation 765. I don't know, we're really trying to extend this cooperation, because for us as an authority, we're more effective if we can stop it at the border instead of it's being distributed all over the country or even going to another country. We shall also take actions if it's a product that's not in conformity, and then the economic operator in some way have some possibilities to get this in line, so to say, if they can take appropriate actions. And here is if you manufacture, you have possibilities to take actions. I would say an importer shouldn't change to the product, because then they will get the manufacturer's responsibility. And I would say in this case the importer and the manufacturers must have some kind of written deal on that they can ask on their do things to correct things So for the moment, the Commission hasn't sent us any guide on these matters, for example, that goes into detail of what these different operators actually can do to correct things. So hopefully in the future we as authorities will also get some guidance. We have to work this out, and we have close communication with the customs, and we have the other agencies, and maybe this is also a question to be raised in Brussels at Commission meetings, what the intention of this text is. So but also we actually may destroy or otherwise render inoperable products presenting a serious risk where they deemed it's necessary and proportional. I think we have sent products to destruction. Yes. Yeah, it's toys. So that is what the risk is if you don't have the products in line when they are coming here, that they will end up being energies in somewhere, probably. And this is the part about our cooperation with the customs. I thought I'd also mention the project we have going on for the moment. If there's not questions about the customs, I think there's one.
You mentioned that distributors and importers should not change the product in any way. A situation that we often encounter is a product that's actually perfectly okay. Only the warning labels are only meant for certain countries, like Southern Europe. And then we also wish to sell it now in the Nordic. So is it not allowed for me to add a warning label with the translation of the warnings into Danish, Swedish, Norwegian, whatever is relevant?
I would say then you have the warning on, but it's not in the appropriate language. So you don't change, you don't alter the product.
Okay, so that would be allowed.
Yeah, then you translate. If you find a product that you know that this should have this label or warning, and it's not there, and then you put it on, then I would say you make a mistake.
Okay, so I'm not allowed to introduce a new warning, but I can translate an existing one.
No, that's the manufacturer's responsibility.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, just short information. We have ongoing projects under this year and next year in cooperation with the Swedish Chemical Agency and the Electrical Agency here in Sweden. And this is due to that into our national legislation where we three authorities has the market surveillance responsibilities depending on which risk it is. And in the line in the back, my colleague Anna Ekegren, who's the project leader for this project for this year and next year. And we have close cooperation with leksaksbranschen also in these matters. And we have been out this spring collecting products, toys, at companies in Sweden. And we have found a lot of different things. Not all parts is actually originating from the new directive, but also safety requirements from the old directive. Of course, we have found mistakes relating to address, not addresses to the manufacturer and the importer. Receiving questions from the importer saying I can't tell anyone where I bought my things from because it's my deliverer, but you have to put it on because that's the new regulations. And now we are, of course, talking about products placed on the market according to the new regulations. We have found, loose suction cups on arrows. We have found slings and slingshots, which is a special case, I would say, but it's pretty unclear if they are allowed or not. a lot of marking, which is not supposed to be there. Just I could have brought one big normal toy frisbee with me. And when you see not for children under 3 years, okay, why this isn't this product for under 3 years? And you also see the hazardous contains small parts on the frisbee of this size. And you have to react as all obligations you have as an, depending if you're a distributor, importer, or manufacturer, because these things can't go on. We will continue this work going back to these companies during the autumn here, and the results from our testings, we have looked on these toys by ourselves at authority. The chemical agency have sent on analysis, and continue our discussions with these parts, and we will continue next year with other sections of the market. We will have information seminars like this in the end of this year, hopefully in the end of November, beginning of December, before you start ordering the toys for the next half year of when we have the new chemical requirements in place. So we're really trying to do something at least for you, because we really hope that you contact your organization and give them inputs if you don't give it straight to us here today about what you need, because we would like to produce stuff that you need and have support of. That's our business, I'd say, also. Yeah. Any questions on this part?
When you go to the toy store and you take up some products for testing, how can you make sure that they are from before the new toy directive or after?
We ask them.
You ask the store, or you ask the producer?
We ask the store, which needs to ask the importer and ask the manufacturer. And of course, this is a problem, and that is our first question when we have been out this spring, asking when did you get this delivered, and what is your role? Are you a distributor, importer, or manufacturer? And sometimes, of course, you see on the label if there is their company name on it or not. Or if you find another national address, for example, then you're pretty sure it's a distributor. But it's up to the economic operator to show us when the product was placed on the market. And this is also could be a reason why we could use the customs next year when the new chemical requirements has come into force, and actually pick up new imported toys, just to make sure that we pick the right ones.
Any more? Okay, there's still time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Vibeke?
It's okay. No, thank you. Okay. Okay. So. Well, hello everyone. I'm Vibeke Benson from the Danish Safety Technology Authority. And I thank you for being invited here to share our experiences with you in the Danish market surveillance. I hope that many Danish distributors, importers and manufacturers have taken the long way here to Malmö, Sweden, to hear about Danish market surveillance explained in English. I'm pleased, of course, to have the opportunity to share our experiences with all of you. I come from the Danish Safety Technology Authority, the DSTA, We are situated in Esbjerg in the western part of Denmark in a pretty old building that used to be a hospital. We are dealing with many fields of technical safety issues. We have the electrical, we have gas, we have products, toys and fireworks. And we also deal with accreditation and metrology. So as you can see, we cover various areas, but chemical safety is not our business. This important issue is dealt with by the Danish Environmental Protection Agency, which is also present here today. It would be a major task to perform a thorough market surveillance covering all kinds of toys and all ways of making the toys available on the market. So in the DSTA we approach this task by a risk-based market surveillance. We take into consideration the following when we choose our actions. We look at the knowledge of risk that can occur from the intended and foreseeable use of the toy. We bear in mind the behavior of children. We use statistic information and other information about accidents and injuries. We use the information available on the market situation and on the way of distributing the toy. And we use our knowledge from previous actions and efforts. Strong magnets from magnet building sets have caused serious stomach problems to young children from 10 months to 8 years. The magnets attract each other and combine across intestinal walls, causing perforation or blockage of the intestines. One fatality has been reported. Because of this danger, we have in the DSTA made previous actions, and now again this year we have been focusing on magnetic toys. We started our action with a screening of magnetic toys on the internet and in 34 shops across the country. We checked the strength and size of the magnets in the toys as far as this was possible without damaging the packaging or the toy. We took pictures of different kinds of magnetic toys, this to remember the variety of magnetic products on the market. All in all, we counted 846 kinds of toys in the 34 shops. We found 3 kinds of magnetic toys to dominate the market. Those were building sets, trains and figures. To explain, the examples could be Geomag, Brio or Bakugan toys. We saw very few experimental sets for children above 8 years. This is interesting because these sets are the only toys where small, strong magnets are still allowed. We saw toys that had been produced more than 3 years ago, and in earlier actions we have actually seen toys being as old as 10 years old being purchased to the customers. These toys were of course safe when they were brought on the market by the manufacturer, but the market surveillance officer has to check if the toy is safe when it's being purchased to the customer. This can cause problems if new risks have been recognized in the meantime, or if the used plastic material has degraded in the meantime. We selected 22 toys for our market control, either because of a potential risk caused by magnets in the toy, or because this kind of toy previously had been found interesting. For each toy, 3 items were picked out in the shops, and we also ordered toys from the internet shops. The responsible importer or manufacturer given on the toy could be a Danish company. If not, the retailer was asked to give information about where he had bought the toy. This way, the highest level in the supply chain in Denmark was identified. The identified economic operator was asked to forward technical documentation for the safety of the toy. In many cases, we received the technical documentation directly from a foreign manufacturer in an email. The documentation was written in English, and we received it within 14 days. Perfect. This way we receive the technical documentation in time to actually look into it before making our final decisions and actions. I mean, if we have to wait 30 days for technical documentation, I mean, if we have a potential dangerous toy, will we wait 30 days? We'll have to move forward with our own testing in the meantime. A problem we discovered was that not all operators are aware that they take on the responsibility as a manufacturer when they put their name and only their name onto the toy. So please be aware. The economical operators were asked when the toy had been placed on the market. If this was done before 20 July 2011, the only technical documentation required was a test report. Of course, in this report, the identity of the tested item should clearly be the relevant toy. If the toy was imported later than July 2011, several documents as listed in the Toy Safety Directive Annex 4 had to be forwarded. We received documentation varying from nothing to more than 100 pages of good, useful documentation. We often received chemical documentation despite the fact that we had clearly stated that we did want only documentation for physical and mechanical safety. To us, this indicates that the economical operators do not always understand the documents that they are forwarding to us. Our approach when estimating the quality of the technical documentation was very gentle in this action. We fully understand that many manufacturers still do not quite understand what kind of documents they are expected to deliver. When we ask for technical documentation for the safety of a toy, we would like to receive an easy declaration of conformity, primarily to see the identity of the responsible manufacturer. And we would certainly like to see a safety assessment. This is, from our point of view, the most important document. It shows if there are other risks aspects not covered by the toy standard. Of course, we would also like to see test reports according to the relevant parts of EN 71, and that would in this case be part 1 and 2. We would like to see description of the means whereby the manufacturer ensure conformity of production with the product type. And we would like to see detailed description of the product, with special focus on potential dangerous parts. In this case, we expected to see a description of the strength and size of the magnets in the toys. The form of the documentation forwarded to the DSTA is optional, as long as we get the relevant information. So please just send in relevant information and do not bother whether it has to be written this way or that way. The only thing is the easy declaration of conformity. Our results. We found that 8 of the tested toys had been placed on the market prior to 20 July 2011. We found that 6 out of the 8 sent in a test report. The toy was clearly identified, typically by photo, and it complied to the relevant requirements in the toy standard. In 2 cases, the manufacturer could not be identified, or he could only forward American test reports for other similar toys using hooks instead of magnets, because this toy was a fishing set. 14 of the tested toys had to forward a full technical documentation. 5 did and 9 did not. All in all, despite our gentle approach, we did not receive adequate technical documentation in 50% of the cases. We also tested the marking of the magnetic toys. We found that CE marking was present on all toys. We found that no warnings were missing. But apparently it's difficult for a manufacturer or an EU importer to understand what is meant by a full address. We often see the internet address or just the name and postal code on the toy. This is not sufficient to meet the requirements of the Toy Safety Directive. And the distributors often seem unaware of their duty to ensure that warnings and safety instructions are given in the language determined by the member state. In Denmark, we accept only Danish as the language to be used. English is not legal to use. It has to be a warning in Danish. Many toys have confusingly many markings. This can make it difficult to the consumer to identify the name of the responsible manufacturer. It can also be difficult to see if there is any Danish information amongst all the other languages used. And markings in Danish might even conflict with markings in English. This might be legal, but to me it seems to conflict with the intention of making toys more safe through the use of marking. We see many toys with this pictogram, and often it's relevant. But if we do ask the economic operator why this pictogram is used, he should be able to justify it. We know that laboratories have different views and are not always right, so we do not accept the answer because the laboratory says so. And we do not accept an even worse answer because the toy contains small parts. Please be aware that we need an answer based on knowledge on the play behavior of children, and you could use the guidelines mentioned here from CEN or the American CPSC to guide you on the way. When we have to test a toy whether it's safe or not, we will start with an internal test of one of the 3 items we have. When we test the toy, we play with the toy in a rough but foreseeable way, bearing in mind the behavior of children. We test the toy according to most requests in the toy standard, but we are not able to perform all tests. If we have any doubts that the toy may not be safe, we send the second of the 3 items to be tested at an accredited laboratory. Based on the results from the lab and from our own test, we make a risk assessment to conclude if the toy is safe. If the toy does not seem to be safe, we inform the economic operator about our results and ask him for his comments. At the same time, we ask him for more detailed information about the supply chain and the number of items that has been bought and sold. Based on his answer, we decide the appropriate measure to secure the consumer from dangerous toys. During this action, we found other risks than magnetism. These were small parts and long strings in toys for children under 36 months. So, our results for the magnetic toys this time. We found that 8 of 22 toys were not safe. We found that building sets, trains and popular figures were safe. We found that fishing sets and traveling games were not so safe. Those were typical cheap products. We found that expensive toys seemed to be more safe. We found that toys bought in toy shops can also be unsafe. And this last sentence is a comment to a previous hypothesis that dangerous toys are mainly sold in other shops than toy shops. So, seen from our point of view, we had a good cooperation with the economical operators. Most operators acted responsibly and without delay when they were faced with a security problem regarding their toys. And for the Danish distributors, I've brought along a few folders explaining in Danish what their duties are according to the Danish legislation implementing the Toy Safety Directive. I placed them out there, and I don't know if they have been picked, all of them, or there's still a few. Okay, so feel free to take them if you find them useful. But you can also find the folder and more information on our website using this link. So I don't have more time, or should I finish? Okay. It's just because I was put together with customs, and I thought I have to bring something along about customs. It's not really my area, but I asked my colleague, and he gave me a few slides that we can go through. It's aimed at the importers of toys to Denmark, and it's just to give you an impression of the procedure that we follow when we cooperate with the Danish customs. If the DSTA has decided to look for a particular product, a risk profile will be developed in cooperation with customs. The risk profile is composed of a variety of information that gives custom the possibility to search for the right type of product. An example could be last year we tested teddy bears and we asked the customs to look especially for toys which were put on the mark that they were not for children in the age under 3 years, you know. So they helped us finding those teddy bears. When custom have found a product matching the risk profile, they will contact the DSTA to resolve whether the product can be released or should be detained for further investigation. If the DSTA assesses the product not to be safe, the importer will be contacted. And this may lead to the DSTA may take out products for further test and evaluation. We could also ask for technical documentation, but 3 days and 30 days, they do not really work together. The importer may provide the DSTA with documentation for product safety. He has to be fast then. The importer may choose to return the product to the manufacturer. The importer may choose to destroy the product. Some of these actions are voluntary and others will be enforced by the DSTA if necessary. So this is actually what I had to say. Do you have any questions?
Some questions for the Danish Safety Authority? No? Okay, thank you, Vibeke.
Thank you.
Urate, please.
Thank you. Hello. Hello everybody. I'm Jūratė Kubaitytė from Lithuanian Ministry of Economy, from the unit of industry policy. My presentation will cover information from Market Surveillance Authority, as well as the latest information from the Ministry regarding better regulation. As you know, every year thousands of new toys come to market. Therefore, buffers must be built against risk factors. In Lithuania, we have the State Non-Food Products Inspectorate, which is responsible for consumer product safety, including toys. 2 toy safety inspection target programs are carried out recently. Small parts and toys which can be placed in mouth, and also phthalates. Items are selected very carefully. Therefore, sometimes, for example, as per phthalates, all samples selected are non-compliant. The inspectorate has an agreement with the customs. As toys are sensitive products, the inspectorate receives information from the custom about all imported toys. When the inspection finds unsafe toys in the market, it informs customs. The customs may check their risk profiles database. Situation is very similar to Sweden, as I see. The customs also focus on CE marking and RAPEX notifications. In the first half year of this year, the inspectorate received only 7 complaints regarding toys. It is a very negligible amount from about 900 totally received. Most complaints were reasonable and consumer rights were protected. Non-food products inspectorate selects a subject for checking, focusing on a risk group, repeated non-compliance. New established businesses usually are not aware of all requirements of Toy Safety Directive. Therefore, many of incidents related to toy safety could be prevented explaining the requirements. In the first half of this year, later all the data will be from the first half of this year, Inspectorate carried out 175 checks of toys. Usually it is selected up to 8 toys per one check. Out of all 883 toy samples selected for testing, 33% of samples were not conforming to the established requirements. The major problem is meeting marking requirements, namely CE marking, not provided name of manufacturer or importer, the toy instruction missing, not provided warnings which should accompany the toy, age group warning symbol not provided or not meeting requirements. Other problems not related to marking were such as not provided technical documentation. It's 1.1%, and the most interesting for you group is dangerous products safety. The last column, it's 3.2% of samples were recognized as not complying to safety requirements. They're dangerous. But only part of these non-compliant to safety requirements toys possess a serious risk to health. The main problems are small parts and phthalates. The information, of course, was passed to Lithuanian customs also. Lithuania has adopted the better regulation program, and the Ministry of Economy was entrusted with the coordination of this program and implementation. Over the past few years, activities of supervising institutions have become more transparent. The objectives of this reform are to reduce the administrative burden on business and corruption, while performing the functions of inspection, and to change the attitude of both business and supervisory institutions to their mission. Supervisory institutions must help business rather than punish it. Business risk assessment systems are used in planning supervisory actions. They consist of the organizational and technical tools implemented in a particular supervisory institution. Principles of declaration are implemented regarding the first business year. The first business year is highly supported by qualified consultants. Uniform telephone consulting ensures better customer service. All conversations are recorded. It is also planned to improve significantly the legal regulation of public consultations, to establish main principles, deadlines, and standards of consultations. It is also sought to expand the provision of electronic services. It is important to ensure the economic entities would have sufficient time to understand the new legal regulation and to prepare for implementation of the obligations imposed by the legislation. So the legal acts in Lithuania should enter into force on 1st May or 1st November with a 2-date rule. And they must be adopted not later than 3 months prior to date of the entry into force. I think it is a big support for businesses. A new regulatory initiative must be assessed in terms of administrative burdens on citizens, businesses, and institutions as well. Supervision is focused on priority directions. The major and most dangerous violations are eliminated and productivity ensured. The resources of the institution are exploited in the most efficient way without being wasted on random activities. For instance, inspections in response to each and every complaint, even if it is insignificant in terms of risk or efficiency. This means consultants rather than punishers. We made a big job preparing control checklists. Lithuanian controlling business control agencies at the moment used 39 control questionnaires in 17 areas when they carry inspections, including toy questionnaire. Control checklists have already been used in 23% of all inspections performed. They are comprising of test questions that reflect the most important requirements of legal acts. And they are worded in a clear and understandable manner. The application of control checklists is useful both for business and for supervisory institutions themselves. Checklists can serve as a guide for business representatives in becoming aware of what and how will be checked by the inspector. At present, control checklists are used for inspections in small public catering companies, small retail companies, hairdressing and beauty salons, auto repair shops, construction companies, and builders. More checklists are prepared also recently. During 30% of all carried product checks, marking non-conformance is found. Part of it is negligible and insignificant. This year, 3 major Lithuanian market surveillance authorities, Food Product Safety Inspectorate, Food and Veterinary Service and Plant Service concluded the memorandum of not punishing business entities for minor non-conformance of product marking. Minor non-conformance may be tolerated if it concerns minor marking violations which do not pose a serious risk to consumers, a serious risk to health and safety of consumers. And labeling misinformation is insignificant. No longer disproportionate fines and sanctions for minor labeling non-conformance will be applied. This revised attitude will allow businessmen to concentrate on the more important requirements. I can name few of tolerated non-conformance. Mistakes in text, incorrect product name, incorrect translation, shortened form of words are used, too small font size but still readable. Product ingredients are not provided in a descending order. Conformity assessment documentation is not available in our national Lithuanian language, but is provided in other foreign language which is widely used within European Union, or it is understandable locally. Address of manufacturer on a product or packing is not provided, but it may be found in documentation. Instructions in the national language is not supplied, but in foreign language instruction there are understandable symbols and pictures. And there are also special minor non-conformance approved for toys. Size of age group symbol. If it is less than a half of centimeter, it will be tolerated. The same as CE mark size, if it is smaller than a half of centimeter. It is also accepted if non-conformance with standards which does not pose a threat to health, to children's health, is also accepted. Persisting efforts of market surveillance authorities and at the same time business-friendly attitude of the authorities step by step grants positive results. Furthermore, these efforts are supported by business. Toy-related companies understand their social responsibility and corporate reputation, which are very closely related. That's all. If any questions?
Thank you, Jūrate. Any questions for the Lithuanian safety or market surveillance? We also have a representative from Latvia here, so might be possible to ask questions or come with some comments.
I have a question related to the accepting of markings, for example, which are smaller than required. Is that a contingency in this accept, or if an importer or a producer markets something with the marking that is too small, that you accepted the first time, what about second, third time?
They asked to provide the correct marking next time.
Any other questions? Yes.
Is the market surveillance coordinated within all the Baltic countries in some way, between also Estonia and Latvia?
I hope so. I'm not from Market Surveillance Authority, I'm sorry. But I think so, in some degree.
Any more? Please.
But the problems which were mentioned during this meeting were very similar to our country. So we are also follow legal acts and are not. Market surveillance works the way as in Sweden, not in the way in customs do not make decisions in Lithuania as well. So I made conclusion for me that we are very close to Nordic countries in our understanding.
Just a short question on the warning labels. What does warnings labels on toys, like for a magnetic toys or any other chemical toy, do they have to be in local language, like in Lithuanian?
Yes.
Yes.
Lithuanian.
Okay. Thank you.
Last question. Okay, thank you very much.
Welcome.
Now we come to the lunch break, and as we found out earlier, it's a bit narrow out there. It's possible to go out there, and I guess it might also be possible to go down to the ground floor and then bring the lunch there. It's a big sandwich and some water. So, but please come back 10 minutes before 2 o'clock, because we have 1 hour and spend the time for networking and so on, but we have also a tight program for the afternoon, so if we can start a bit earlier, it would be very good for all of us. Have a nice lunch.